people to be kitted up with the mic? Okay. Thank you so much, colleagues. We are now getting into the second segment of the day. I know this is a difficult session. Digestion sometimes can be our worst enemy. So let's try by all means to be awake. So this session that I'm going to chair has got two segments. The first segment, we're going to showcase FSNet Africa. This is attending to our program objective number 4. And then after that, it is going to be followed by showcasing of the Arua SFS focal area projects. This is going to attend to our program objective number 5. So my role is just to make sure that things are flowing seamlessly, but most importantly, to make sure that we adhere to the time contract. So in terms of housekeeping issues, the program, the way it's designed, doesn't allow for us to have afternoon tea and snacks. So we have discussed it. So we are asking that we do a bit of adjustment. So we are going to break for 30 minutes from 15 hours to 15:30. And then with humble request, I am asking that we then compensate for that 30 minutes beyond the allocated 16 hours to make sure that we attend to the affairs of the second segment of the program as we have designed it to be delivered. So I believe that because you are silent, you are giving me a very, very big thumbs up and endorsement. So we will then continue in that order. The other housekeeping announcement is that there are those that will or might require COVID PCR test on their travel back. So if you require that, please make sure that you get in touch with Lufingo. I believe Lufingo is well known here. Lufingo, if you are around, yeah. Please, if you require PCR COVID test, make sure that you get in touch with him. The admin team will facilitate that. Coming back to the business of the session, then I am pleased that we are going to start with a very interesting project or program that I am very close to in terms of implementation. So without any bias, then the FSNet Africa project, like the way it's being described as the topping of the subsession, we are going to showcase a model. And a model is not something which is perfect, but a model is something which still gonna go to the last mile in terms of refining, but more so, a model is something that you can use to emulate or to follow. So please give us your feedback, which is honest, and we're going to appreciate that. So without any further ado, I will invite a colleague of mine, which I respect, Prof. Claire Quinn, who is the co-PI together with Prof. Franz Schwanepoel, to come and facilitate the first segment of the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, TM, and thank you, everybody, for the invite to be here with you today. It's a real pleasure, and I was just saying earlier today that Future Africa feels like my second home. I spend so much time staying here. So what I want to do at the beginning is just give a very quick introduction to FSNet Africa. And I want to say right at the very beginning that it's a collaborative project. And these slides are a reflection of that in terms of a collaborative effort that have been put together by all of my colleagues in the leadership team and in the project management team. So thank you to everybody who provided the slides and helped me put this together. So FSNet Africa is a research excellence project. And it is funded by the Global Challenges Research Fund, which is a large fund from the UK government to enable research on some of the big grand challenges that we face across the globe. But FSNet Africa in particular is funded through GCRF as part of the partnership between ARUA and the UKRI, so our funding for research. And it has 3 lead partners. So we have the University of Pretoria and the University of Leeds and our colleagues in Fanapan, all working together to deliver this project. And the goal of our project is around 2 kind of big things. We want to conduct innovative and world-leading research on African food systems, and we want to translate that evidence that we develop into interventions that can transform the food system in ways that promote sustainability and food and livelihood security. And this requires us to work in partnerships. It requires us to work closely with and engage with food system stakeholders in order to deliver that research. We're not moving forward. There we go. So we're working collaboratively to produce this research and then engaging with stakeholders to make that research relevant. And a key part of our approach is a 2-year-long structured research fellowship that we have 20 fellows undertaking. So we have a network of partners, academic partners, across the continent in 6 countries that have connections to either the ARUA Centre of Excellence or to the University of Leeds through our GCRF AfriCap project that we had before we started on FSNet Africa. And then we also have our Fanapan links to stakeholders across those focal countries through the Fanapan nodes, but also through other connections in those countries. So really connecting with stakeholders right from the beginning of our research. And we actually have somebody here today who we're having conversations with, Prosper, potentially being one of our stakeholders and connected into the research that we're doing. And so a key part of the FSNet Africa model is our fellows. And what we're doing with our fellows is that we're putting them at the core of FSNet Africa. So we're building their research capacity and we're building their networks to University of Leeds through a UK mentor, across the African continent to African mentors, to other advisors and stakeholders in the food system through Fanapan, and to the University of Pretoria via UP Host. And these fellowships are really about building networks that build research capacity and build leadership around African food systems. So the networks are cross-disciplinary, they are cross-career stage, and they cross geographical boundaries. And they engage with food system stakeholders. And how we're doing this model is through this experiential learning approach. So we have 5 thematic skill sets that we're developing in our fellows. And we have 6 learning interventions. So opportunities to learn and to train. And all of those things map onto a research pathway, which we have at the bottom of this slide here, where our fellows are conceptualizing, developing proposals, implementing research, and then disseminating that research at the end. So in each of these areas, we have activities that are going on. So we have these 6 activities that match onto our research pathway, and then we provide training. So At the very beginning, it's about how do you design a project, data management, project reporting, but also starting to get into some research methods and starting to get our fellows to think about how you might communicate your research impact, but also to start engaging with stakeholders right at the very beginning of development. And then we had our UP Summer School held here at Future Africa, where we really started to get into some research methodologies and this idea of systems thinking, which is the conceptual underpinning for FSNet Africa. And then we had very recently, in June into July, the UK Summer School, again looking at research methodologies, but starting to think about research impact too, but also building on project management, data management, and all of those sorts of things. And then we will continue with training around leadership and communication, which will be very much led by Fanapan, and taking us right out to the end of 2023, where we're looking at engaging again with our stakeholders and communicating with them and working out how to do that kind of communication effectively. What underpins the research approach for FSNet Africa is a food systems approach. And this is the conceptual framing that enables all of our research projects to happen. When we're thinking about a food systems framework, particularly for food systems in Africa, we're thinking about specific drivers of change in an African context. We're thinking about critical activities and actors and conditions that are particular to food systems here. And we're thinking about outcomes around key fault lines in Africa, around food security, environmental sustainability, around livelihoods and equity. And all of our fellows are thinking about where their research sits within this framework, so that we can start to identify leverage points for intervention and transformation within the food system. So that gives you a very quick whistle-stop tour of what FSNet Africa is and the model that we're trying to apply. What we want to do next in this session is hear from our fellows and those teams themselves. So I'd like to invite the first team to come up, which is Innocencia John's team. She's from the University of Dar es Salaam, and I think some of her research triad are also here. And so they're going to talk about their experiences on FSNet Africa. So if you'd like to come and join me at the front here.
Thank you very much, Claire, for that introduction. I'm very excited today to be introducing my triad. We like to call ourselves the coolest triad, but I know the triads here will, some of them will disagree with me, but we are cool. You'll see at the end of this. My triad consists of Professor Diane Holt from the University of Leeds, Dr. Chewen Konde from the University of Zambia. And they're joining us online. So Innocencia and I will chat, and we'll also give them, we'll play a video that we have taken for their views on some of the issues that we'll talk about. So I'm going to start. I think we can better do this when we are seated. I think it would be better if we can sit. Yeah. So I'm going to start by asking Innocencia to talk about what has worked in the triad. What do you think is working well in the triad? What did we get right?
Thank you, Coletta. So in our triad, one of the key things that works is the communication. So we communicate frequently and consistently. We use all sorts of communication. Sometimes we chat on WhatsApp. We communicate on emails frequently, and we also have bi-weekly meetings that have really worked and kept the triad going.
Great. And the bi-weekly meetings, she forgot to say, they're very consistent. She keeps reminding us of the meetings and makes sure that we do that. But we don't only have those serious meetings. Sometimes we just have a fun meeting to talk about what is happening in our lives. That has really helped us to connect as a team. Let's hear what our mentors think about the challenges that we also face, because we can talk about all the fun stuff and paint a good picture of a cool triad. But yes, let's hear what the mentors said about the challenges that are in the triad.
One of the biggest challenges is always going to be how you make it work when we're all on different parts of the world and we all have very different schedules. So for instance, Cherry and I obviously are senior staff members, and it can be very challenging to deal with the fact that, like, as a subject group lead, I have meetings, I have projects, I have teaching, how we work around that when we're in different time zones. That has been one of the biggest challenges, is to make a time that we can all meet. That was one of the strategies for dealing with it, was to pick a specific time period and then schedule those in the diary as far in advance as possible and try and keep them free. But obviously also giving feedback and things like that in terms of our own schedules. And so certainly in my instance, people have to keep nudging me to make sure I do it. So in a sense, has learnt the fine art of gently encouraging me to return things with comments, which is always a very good skill to have, to be able to convince somebody to carve some time out to do something and get it back to them very quickly. Cherry, how about you?
Yeah, I think what Dan has explained is really the issue, that the scheduling flexibility has been a big one. And so sometimes we've had, sometimes returning comments, particularly on some of the deliverables to Sensia has been a bit difficult for us, but I think we've tried to work around it as a team. And I think we appreciate the patience that Sensia has exhibited throughout this process, because it's not easy. She also has a job to take care of in Tanzania, and sometimes she has to really nudge us and try to make sure that we get back get back to her quickly in terms of the different things that we have to deliver as a triad. And I think one other thing that has really helped, and I'm trying to talk about how we've resolved these issues as a triad, is we've learned the art of listening to each other, and we've checked our egos on the door and said, listen, let's make sure that we work together and ensure that we do a good job. And it's really been seamless in terms of working together as a triad. So much as we've had the challenge of the scheduling, the beauty is that we've really learned how to listen to one another and work very well without any major problems, as a team. Yeah.
Okay, so let's come back to the benefits of this triad. Sensia, what would you say you've benefited the most before I come in?
Okay, so as a triad, it's a team of people with different disciplines. So one of the key benefits I, as a fellow, that has obtained is the interdisciplinarity within the triad, where I have learnt a lot from my mentors. We also even had a chance to actually have a session where I learned more about entrepreneurship from my mentors and issues of extension. And Coletta has been very helpful in terms of trying to discuss the economic issues. So the interdisciplinarity of the team has actually helped a lot, especially in working with our current research.
Coletta. Okay, and for me, mainly it's the new friends that I've gained from this triad. It's amazing to see how we all look at things differently. And even when we met Prosper Diane had a different view to how we're going to work with Prosper. Innocencia had another idea, and Chewe was involving his students in engaging with Prosper. I wouldn't have thought of that, but let's hear again what our mentors had to say about their benefits in this triad.
So it's been obviously really interesting to meet new people, but to also build over time a deeper kind of relationship rather than one-off type Zoom meetings. And so that I think has been really good. It's also been a nice opportunity to step outside my discipline. And so it kind of switched things on a bit more for me, if you see what I mean. I think it's important to reflect on the fact that each one of us is very different in our disciplines, but actually underneath we have quite a lot of areas where we speak a common language. One of the tricks, if we were to go back to tricks, that helps with the benefits of all of this is to have a triad that, whilst they are in different disciplines, does have some cursory understanding of some of the other aspects. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't work if you don't, but I think it has really helped. And I think the benefit of that is that we've been able to skip a lot of the explanations of things and get right to the heart of stuff, because we already kind of understand the very basics. So the basic first kind of 30–40% of something, we're not having to start and explain the importance of something core. So that has really helped. And I think it's also then for me, it's helped me to reconnect with those other areas of the work that I've done in the past, and bring them back. And that's been really fulfilling. So yeah, during COVID in particular, obviously these kinds of things gave us a structure, which I really liked, because, you know, it gave you something to around beyond that of the teaching that you were doing to focus in on as a scheduling thing. So that was nice as well. Cherry, what about you?
Yeah, no, thank you, Dan, for that. So, I'll just tell you a story. So when I was asked to be part of this triad, the interesting part is I spoke to Liz, who got in touch with me about it, and I was like, I'm not so sure I want to be a mentor, but I'll try. I don't know what experience I'll bring. Yes, I've had experience before I joined the academia, but obviously that experience would also add value to the work that Sensei is doing. But one of the things that I did, I quickly asked who was going to be on the team, and I was told about Diane. And I quickly Googled her name and just to check her Google Scholar. And the first thing that jumped to me is one of the papers that has more than 2,000 citations. And I was like, wow, I think I was starting to learn a lot from this lady, because she's done quite a lot of things. So for me, it's more of what I was looking forward to. I mean, to be, yes, a mentor, but also learn from others like Diane, and even from Innocencia herself, the work that she did from my alma mater at Michigan State University. So that was exciting as well. And also being part of the team where Coletta was joining as a UP host, and the work that she's done. So all those things were really exciting things that really, I was looking forward to in joining this team. So
Key messages. Clay is now cracking the whip. What would you like to leave us to think about other triads? Gloria's triad is waiting.
Okay, one of the key messages as a fellow is the patience and your flexibility. So once you understand that, you can always accept what comes ahead and always plan early.
Yeah, for my side, I would say open communication makes the team work. Let's hear what our mentors have to say in wrapping up.
One of the key takeaways is to recognise, be realistic with yourself in terms of you are getting a benefit from this as a mentor, that it's not all just altruistic, that actually you do get some very positive things that can help you regardless of what career stage you're at. And for me, things like being able to access people in other institutions for funding proposals, to use them as a gateway, that yes, you do sacrifice a bit of time, particularly at the beginning, particularly with the intense training at the beginning, but actually that will pay off for me. So, you know, it's also really nice to have somebody that you're working with, that you're watching them develop. And it's a bit like when you work with a postdoc scholar, and you know, so you get a great deal of satisfaction from seeing somebody's confidence grow and then develop over time, and, you know, leaving a legacy, I suppose, behind of somebody that you've worked with, that you have helped, at least in a small way, to kind of move them forward. And so I think it's to recognise as a mentor, particularly one that's, you know, maybe in a senior role, that you will actually get benefits from this, and it's not just a one-way direction, and therefore you need to commit to it. And having a commitment to this process is, for me, critical. You need to have mentors that say, yeah, I'm engaging, but I'm fully engaging, and I'm committing to being a proper part of this. That would be my key things.
Yeah, maybe I can also say something about what Dan, just to piggyback on what she's saying. And the reality is that we are all very busy people. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that since we signed up for this, you know, show your commitment as a mentor. I think that will go well with the fellow as well. And then to the fellow, or any fellow who's on any given triad, just continue being patient. I think for us, what we've learned from Innocencia is our patience, but she keeps obviously finding a way of getting to us to ensure that we respond to whatever deadlines we do have. And that's a great attribute that I would like to really emphasize amongst the fellows. And then to the UP hosts, ensure that information is communicated on a regular basis that we need to know about. And I think that's really, really helpful as you move forward as a triad. Thank you.
I told you we are the coolest triad. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, can I invite the next triad to come and join us up here? This is Dr. Sarah Gondouwe and her triad, which is we started off calling them triads because we would have a fellow and a mentor from the UK and a mentor from an African university, and actually they've turned into quads and quintets, and because the networks are growing, which is actually really great. Okay, so over to you guys.
Okay. Thank you. Wow, I think you see when we're done that we are the coolest. So I wanted to start off with that what we are doing in our triad, well, in our team, it's actually like bringing out evidence of what we discussed in the last session. There were issues to do with collaboration. There were issues to talk about how are institutions collaborating, interdisciplinarity. Well, I'll just give a hint of what we are working on. We're going to do a research to try and bring out some evidence on a crop livestock farming system as one of the interventions, which is a climate smart agriculture. We have talked quite a lot about, people are not doing what they're supposed to do. So for us, we are thinking they are not adopting climate smart agriculture practices, probably because they don't know. They don't know what is it that has to be put in. The development partners, the financiers are also asking the same thing. How much should we put in? Why? What is going to come out of it? So that's what this team is going to work on. So that brings you an aspect that for us would bring out the benefits of what each one of us has seen in our own roles. So our team is made out of a number of experts. Just by looking at that topic that we're discussing, we need a number of experts in the team. So I am in the team from the agribusiness side. We have Prof. Margaret there, an economist. We have Ernest over there, a socio-economist. And we have a food scientist over here, Dr. Gloria. And then we have, guess what? A biologist, and that's the one from University of, from Leeds. So that's our team, and it is quite exciting because the moment we're told that these are the team members, for myself, my first question was, oh, when I was applying, I had given some idea of who should be on the team. And then when I said, oh, this is your team, I was like, oh, okay. Business. Okay, so let me hand over to my team members to share in terms of the benefits and what we have been doing as a team.
So as Sarah said, from my side as well, and I think from Chris's side, who is the biologist, when we were also put on the team, we were like, really? You know, what is going on here? And we've thought that that was going to be a challenge for us, you know, thinking, for me personally, one thing, if you know me, one thing I always say is that when I hear agribusiness, when I hear economics, my brain just shuts off, you know. So here I am in a team that is mainly focused on agribusiness. But what we thought was going to be a challenge has actually turned out to be an opportunity for us, because we find out that, for me personally, when the agribusiness proposal is put in front of me, I find out that I'm actually learning. And it's not just, you know, what I would probably have to spend time looking on the internet or reading books to actually understand. I understand easily because I have the experts on the team. I can easily call somebody and then I will get the explanation that I need to get. So this has been great, of course, also for even in terms of food science or post-harvest, what I bring on board, you find out that even though maybe somebody is a social scientist or an economist, they actually have different perspectives of what you actually think you are an expert in. And that also brings out some sort of benefits to us as individuals. And then the other aspects I will look at is the benefits we get from working with people on the different continents. We have to work with people in the UK University of Leeds. And for me, I had the opportunity to visit the University of Leeds over the summer. And I was exposed to their laboratories. Being a food scientist, I was lucky also. We went to the food science labs, and we saw the resources available. And I am not, you know, an established scientist. I'm mid-career, so I still do my research and everything. And it showed us what we had, what was available, you know, the resources available. And because of this collaboration, you can actually get access to these resources. And so for us, for me and for us, some of us, it's been really beneficial being on this team. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Thanks, Gloria. Then I come in as the UP host, who's supposed to play the role of networking everyone and making sure that we are closely linked and we are working together well. And I'm this person who's been in this cocoon where I just sit down and I do my writing on my own, and now I have to knock on doors. Yeah, so it has been quite interesting, especially the link that we have now with the different African universities. Most time it's sort of like, it's not real if you are talking about it, but when you get to see the people in person, like meeting Sarah for the first time, meeting Gloria for the first time, meeting Margaret for the first time, and we hope to meet Chris as well very soon. It has been quite interesting because you realize that it's now the research institutions, not in theory, but it's the research institutions with their face, like what they say, science with their face. So for me, that has been quite interesting, breaking out of that cocoon and being the person that needs to gel the team so that everything goes well. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, is it over to me now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. So firstly, when I received this message to be part of the team, my assistant in the office, and I'm a dean of a faculty in this university, she said, shall I politely decline, as usual? So I said, no, in this case, there is Sis Lindy in this involved, and it won't look good. I'll get a beating. It won't work. And then, of course, I started to read to understand what was it that I was being involved in. And I read the proposal, and I thought, well, I grew up, I'm here today because my mom and my dad had little small farms that they were working and selling some of that produce. And this is exactly what you are talking about. So then, of course, I thought, okay, I belong here most certainly. And from there onwards, I was very interested in the various communications that we've had We haven't had enough time to meet, but I think with the proposal now being ready, we will have those kinds of meetings as well. I was very interested, as we were talking now, meeting face to face, and we were comparing ages. Yeah, women, can you believe it? And it turns out I think I'm the most senior in this group. And that alone, to me, felt I found a family. Over and above this project, I found a family. So I want to thank Sis Lindy for what you did to France, to Heide, and all those involved for inviting me to this group. It's exciting. As you can see here, if we don't count Chris, it's 4 women, women power. So this is exciting. The project itself is exciting. It's extremely useful for us in our African context. And I'm looking forward to this. And also to learning from the so-called cool group.
Yeah, so I wanted to add one other thing. The other thing that makes this model really exciting is that you're not pushed to have a proposal just because you have read what other people have done, but you're really pushed to say, can you connect with the stakeholders that you think you're going to work with? So you don't have them at the beginning, but then you are pushed and say, okay, can you think about who is it that you're going to be working with and why? And that is what would enhance impact, because you have to connect with the people that you're seeing. And then the other bit is that, as you have seen from what has been shared, the benefits are at different levels. You have at an individual level, be it in socially, academically, and then there are benefits coming in because of the institutional aspects. And then there are also benefits coming in because of the cross-continental, and then even within the continent. And so that really brings out the model, and we feel that it really is an exciting journey. We just got on this journey, but we sure are going to be the coolest.
Let's wait and see. Thank you very much, guys. A round of applause for Sarah's team. So I'd like to invite the final team that's going to talk to us today. So Nokutula and her team, if you'd like to come down. Please stay. We'll have a little chat afterwards. Okay. I will stand up, make sure that there's room for the team to fit.
That was really interesting. Good. Well done. Yes. You're bringing in different insights. We're trying to catch up. She's going to give us a hard time.
We've only got 2 seats, and we've got 3 people.
We've got 3.
So
I can stand as fine.
Coletta's going to stand. So if everybody scoots down one, then we can. Again, it's asking the same questions that all of our other fellowship teams have been thinking about in terms of, I guess maybe let's start from the challenges that you faced. What do you think have been the particular challenges that you faced, and how have you solved them in your triad and in your team?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I do not want to state the obvious one, because firstly, I think this was a great opportunity for me. I think when I was approached, I didn't take a second chance. Like, I just immediately thought this is a great opportunity. However, starting 8 months after everyone had already began was a huge challenge. And I had not really taken time to figure out what am I getting myself into. I knew what my goal was, so I basically came in and I was like, this is what I want to achieve. So the biggest challenge for me was, in as much as going through the learning, it was assimilating, making it work for me. Because it's one thing learning. I've always said when you learn as an undergraduate, you just learn to pass. But right now you need to learn for application. So, and that was something that I saw was critical as part of the learning with the summer schools, which was really a challenge given the time that I had. But it's also pushed me to really dig deep within myself to say, okay, you know why you came in here, so you have to make it work. just find a way to make it work. So it's been a challenge that's really come out to really have a good impact in my working life.
Great. So for you guys, any challenges that you want to add to that?
Challenge for me is it's like an arranged marriage. I've never been in an arranged marriage, but you meet people for the first time and you do not necessarily know if you will work well with them. So nice to meet you today.
Indeed, yeah.
But I mean, that's why we have reputations and that's why we have publication records. And the moment, somebody else also mentioned, the moment that you see, oh, this is someone I'm interested to meet. This is someone I know well that will give us opportunities to work together. Then you make it work. So while it's a challenge, it's also a fantastic opportunity. And then to have this pressure from the coolest team to become the coolest team is great encouragement. So
great.
I've got my own mic. I think for me, you know, when I first heard of FSNet Africa, I think I actually joined the network in a slightly indirect route because I heard from someone else that applied and he wanted me to be his mentor. But you know, I think one of I thought that's really worked well, and although there's I guess the primary challenge we face is being able to have sufficient time together to explore the science, to understand the methodologies that we're using, and you know, just have the opportunity to think and step back from, you know, you write a proposal, you have specific objectives and you know, and tasks that you need to do, but sometimes you do need to step back and see the bigger picture. And I think the challenge is to be able to do that, and the fact that we have had difficulties in meetings. So you know, but I think it's so far I think I see a lot of promise, and there's a lot of opportunities that we could take forward in the proposal.
Good. So then, I think you started to touch on it in terms of the benefits that you sort of see from being part of FSNet Africa and then being part of the triad. But I don't know whether you wanted to kind of expand or talk a little bit more about the benefits as you see them from being involved. Maybe Tulu, start with you.
Do you know, sometimes expressing yourself in your home language is much easier. But I'll try and do my best in explaining. So I came in as a needy child. So I really wanted a lot. I was deficient in so many aspects. But coming into FSNet Africa was an eye-opener in the sense that it took me back to really going back to the basics, learning what research methods are, learning what ethics are, learning what being cognizant of the fact that gender is an issue that needs to be addressed when we do research, which was something that I had totally overlooked. I thought, I don't need this in my research. And also knowing the stakeholders that need to be involved, because I think when I started doing the first identification of stakeholders that I felt, being the key word, needed to be part of my network, it's changed. Looking at the work that I'm doing right now and understanding the research and also engaging with my mentors, my approach to who the stakeholders are has changed because I've learned through the material that I've been going through from the training through the summer school. So in a sense, a lot. It's really going back to what I learned in my graduate years, going back and also just finding out what is current in terms of the spaces that we're going into as early career researchers. I think what has also been impactful is understanding that we need to do research differently. So a lot of the things that used to be done in terms of us increasing our citations, but we also have to understand that we also need to communicate to other people who need to benefit from the research. So communication, science communication, engaging policy is something that has become part and parcel of being a researcher. So going back to those has been really a learning process, and I've fully embraced it, and I'm really excited to learn more.
Great. We have another member of the team online. I just wanted to hand over, maybe I wondered if Prof had any words in terms of benefits and challenges that you wanted to add.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm sure we are in afternoon. Yes, I joined the FSNet as a mentor because I applied. So I had a first mentee, Clarity. Then along the way, we had a change. And during that change, I was really thinking, a new person, we were already developing a relationship with Clarity. Then along the way, a new one came to join us. And I think that because we had learned how to manage the first one, when Nukotila joined us, it was very easy for us. So we have learned to have a transition from one mentee to the other. I think one of the learning process is very helpful in a relationship when you have to change as a group. I think that has been and we have been very stable. The other benefit is that after going through orientation with the mentees, I have now started thinking, is it at this stage we should introduce system thinking to research? Or we should look at it even at postgraduate level going below, so that we have a new generation that doesn't look at research in silos, but they look at it holistically with different mindset, not in boxes. So that also helped me when I now got back to my classroom. I could use some of those experiences to facilitate my class. So I think that I've built a relationship. I've also learned and ability to stabilize when there's change and so on. So I think the triad has done very well. And I've not met Peter and UP hosts, physically, face to face, but we have been flowing very well. So I think that's also very good opportunity to. Virtual is good, even though we've not seen face to face. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, some final thoughts from the team.
We grow up, we grow old very fast. And this network, this type of opportunity gives more established researchers an opportunity to share their networks with others, and I firmly believe in the power of networks. One can think about when you start out as a young researcher, and I've experienced the benefits of others providing opportunities and networks, and this is a means of giving back as well. So it's great to see young people growing as researchers.
Peter, any final thoughts to add?
Final thoughts. I think in terms of what I've benefited from specifically is it has opened up some avenues in terms of being able to connect with researchers in the FSNet Africa network, which I would not have had the opportunity before. So I think I see this as a stepping stone, really, and there's a lot of opportunities for us to move forward and use this project as a way of moving forward in terms of you know, some of the aspects that we're proposing in the proposal is not something that we can do within the time frame that we have, but I think it will allow us to use this as a first point and then move forward in furthering our interest in the research topics.
Great. Wow. Okay, so then I wanted to give a couple of minutes in case there are questions or comments from the wider group that are here, to anyone on the team, if anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to ask us while we're all here. There's a couple right at the back as well, I think. Red jacket, one, two.
Good afternoon. Mine is just short clarity question. I think there is this roundtable discussion on food system resilience between the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, Department of Science and Innovation, South Africa, as well as the N8 Agri-Foods. UK, I believe, leads this part of that. And does that have to do anything with that initiative at all? Thank you.
I think we have lots of connections into that initiative, but FSNet Africa itself isn't part of that. But yeah, we all have connections to that initiative, I think, sort of individually and as members of FSNet Africa.
Thank you very much. Father Lord, now regarding this mentor, mentorship, mentor, mentee, and all that. I think there's this program or process has been around for quite some time. And I had thought probably at some stage we finished that and everybody was like moving fast in the stream. But it appears that we need that mentorship now than ever before. So having said that, I was just wondering, are you planning to come up with a write-up, or I don't know how to put it, that would provide guidance as to how mentorship should be done in Africa or in collaboration with other continents? So I think this will be very useful information as this process is really needed now than ever before. Thank you.
And I think it's a really good question. And I think we learnt a lot in terms of when we were putting together FSNet Africa about from other schemes like award and so on. So there have been other kind of schemes, and we've definitely learnt from the way in which they've implemented. And we're learning all the time in FSNet Africa about what works and what doesn't work. And we're constantly asking our teams, how's it going? You know, how's the triad working? What's working well? What isn't working so well? They're probably sick of getting emails from us saying, tell us how things are going. But I think it's a hugely important part of what we're doing is learning about that process. So I think, yes, absolutely. I think we will look at ways in which we communicate how this works and what works well, what doesn't work so well, what we can kind of gain from it in terms of the future. So that's definitely on our radar, and we've already started talking about that and thinking about the ways in which we'll gather evidence about it, but also about communicating it. I realise that we're almost to the end, so we'll take one final, and then we'll wrap up before the tea break so that we stay on time. BDI. Yes.
Thank you. With a drive towards networking and collaboration, I know that teamwork is not usually easy. You'll find now that there are usually some very active participants, and dormant participants. So I'm very interested in knowing how FSNet is dealing with such cases of dormant participants. Thank you.
Well, maybe I'll throw this question to our teams that are here in terms of, has there been a particular challenge in balancing engagement or activeness across your teams? Or have you found it easier to, that everybody's engaged? Or how have you found it in your own teams in terms of balancing between?
A quick way to say it is, it's because we are different expertise in a team, and so every individual contributes something sort of differently than the other person. It's not like you become dormant because you have your part to contribute. So you contribute your part, and then the other person also contributes. So yes, some may contribute more, but everybody sort of has an input into it. So it's not, and it's a small team, so it's not easy for you to say that if you were like 7, then you can hide behind somebody. But here you are 3 and 4, so you can't hide too much, So that's what I would say.
Yeah. So one of the training that we went through at the summer school was to identify where each other's strengths are. So in as much as, for me, it came a bit late when the teams had already started engaging, but I also, when I met with my team online, I explained to them that we had an interesting session that actually pointed out that you need to be aware of where each other's strengths lie and find a way of bringing out that strength and making it work for the team, because, we are not all given the same capacities. So focusing on where your strength lies and where your partner can support you in that regard has, so far for us, is working. So I hope we can build on that and prove the theory wrong.
Kalata, you had a fun.
Yeah, and most of what I wanted to say, Noktula has just said, but then I was going to add, in our co-triad, our fellow is very proactive. So she keeps reminding us. She'll send a reminder. If the email doesn't work, you'll see a WhatsApp come. And then in the next meeting, she'll say, can we have standing meetings, sort of. So when you're a dormant player in the team, you're sort of forced by the fellows' proactiveness to respond.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so just to kind of sum up where we are in terms of FSNet Africa and the things that we've discussed today. I think some of the things that have kind of come out very strongly for me, just listening to all of the teams talking about their experiences, is this idea of relationship building. And networking and creating networks was kind of a core mission for FSNet Africa. So it's really great to see that that relationship building is coming out. And the fact that the teams have the different experience, they think differently, they bring different expertise, they kind of think about subjects differently, actually adds to those relationships. Building and creating effective collaborations requires communication. Communication, I think. But also flexibility, to be able to cope with changes as they come, and to manage those things so that we can keep moving forward. But what we're hopefully doing is not only building academic networks, but we're also building personal connections to people, to institutions, but also personal connections to topics, thinking about these challenges in new and different ways. And we might think that a kind of fellowship model is about learning for fellows, but actually it's about learning for everybody. It's learning for the fellows, it's learning for the mentors, it's learning for the academic leadership team, it's everybody who's involved is learning from this process. And we need to make sure that we share that learning. So we communicate what we're learning to the broader academia, we communicate what we're learning and we share that with our students, and so we kind of make sure that we build out from what we're learning. There are challenges none of these things are easy, and the challenges are time and change. But the kind of holistic, collaborative way of thinking helps us, I think, to overcome those challenges. So we go forward with FSNet Africa. We're starting to, all of our fellows are starting to get really embedded into their research. So hopefully when we come back, whether it's another one of these or Africa Week next year, then we'll have fellows to be able to talk about the actual research that they've done, the findings that they've got, and what that means for transforming African food systems. So thank you very much.
Colleagues, we are breaking for tea, allocated 30 minutes, so let's be back here by 15:30.